and today we're going to look at Creatures of the Dark and then move on to boggarts a bit later on. But first we are going to mark your homework from last lesson, for those of you who don't remember. Then I'll briefly explain. For those who don't remember, it was briefly explain the Dark in 100 words. If you haven't done that because you haven't watched last lesson, then you need to go watch last lesson. These will not be standalone videos. They do run alongside each other. Although if you are already very familiar with the Dark, then obviously don't, but it will be helpful to watch that last one. If you haven't died because you haven't bothered, then remember some spooks do die because they're too lazy. I don't need to read from the Holy Grail to tell you that. There are a lot of stories. I do not have time. So yes, do the smart thing and do that, or you'll die. You have done that. Well done. Getting a spook point. What was I? Oh yeah, homework. So let us draft this up together, and you can give yourself a mark out of 3. That there is just 110 words, and that's not very long, and that's probably longer than you need. And basically, you will get 1 point for explaining what the Dark is. So, if I bullet point this, so explanation of Dark. Another point for history of Dark. A point for entities of the Dark. A point for defense against the Dark. Defense against the dark arts. I'm hilarious, I know. What was I? Oh yeah, expanding on creatures of the dark. Expanding on defense against the dark. No, not the dark side of anything. I believe that's everything. Okay, yeah, that's everything. So again, you only have to cover 3 of those things to get a full 3 marks. Or if you've gone really in depth in just one thing, I'll say, then you kind of just judge yourself whether or not you think that is deserving of a full mark. Because obviously I can't manually mark yours because you're online. For all I know, you're in a different country. Well, actually, I do know because I know all my subscribers are in England because I know all my subscribers are my friends. But yeah, so that's all you have to cover. Again, people who wait a minute, let's put back to normal mode. People who've read the books might know of other things belonging to the Dark that they may have written down. If you have read the books and written something that I have not highlighted there, we've not covered yet, then 1 point for mentioning those things, as long as there's at least like 3 examples, and then a point for expanding on those things. Again, I'm kind of having to wing stuff that you've written that doesn't conform to this because I only plan this for people who are going purely off the lessons. So, you know, if you covered Old College, for example, then that, yeah. Now today's topic, we're looking at Creatures of the Dark specifically, so there will be quite a lot of quotations from our Holy Grail here, the Bible, the Quran. That probably wasn't the best thing to call it, since it has nowhere near the, importance that it does, but it's a book of incredibly important knowledge to what we're learning, and therefore I can call it our version of the Bible, the Bible, which is what people at my old school used to call the Bible. That was weird. Anyway, what was I? Oh yeah, the first thing we're looking at is witches, which requires a quote from my holy grail of knowledge, and I was supposed to bookmark this. Give me a minute. Witches have walked the earth from the earliest of times, and the development of human language has allowed them to weave even more complex curses, spells, and rituals. By trial and error, they have also learned the potential of plants to either poison or cure. Some witches are also benignant healers, following the path towards the light and helping their communities. Others choose to ally themselves with the dark, lurk to sell their souls in exchange for the ability to wield dark magic. So what most people think of when I say witch. I do really love the way witch magic works in these books. Although they are kind of typically what you think of when I say witches, as I mentioned 5 seconds ago, the magic is a lot less bibbidi bobbidi boo and a lot more steroids, I guess. I'll get into that when we go over magic, but it is something that is really cool, and I just really appreciate Joseph Filani for how he's done that. Now there are lots of different ways of distinguishing a witch based on, their alignment and their species. You get different species of witches, but we'll go over that next term. Today we're only going to look at how they get their magic, and we're going to look at the basics of that. We're not really going to go too in depth on everything, we're just going to skim over the top, So number 1 is the most common, the consumption of blood, which gives them magic. Almost all witches will start with the consumption of blood. Supposedly a child is different, and supposedly a child is more powerful, depending on who you ask. Bone magic, which is typically used with thumb bones, where by grasping a dead person's thumb bones, well, I don't know if they have to be dead, but typically you take off someone's thumb bones, they are dead, then you will gain magic. Kind of sort of their magic based on how powerful they were, but that's not really gone into detail, so we'll just kind of skip over that. Moon magic, which is essentially just dancing naked around a pond, often whilst collecting herbs. Aneurysm magic, which is really practiced, but supposedly more powerful. It's essentially you absorb the life essence of a person by draining their willpower, and then you gain their life essence. I guess teenagers will be very good at aneurysm magic. Elemental magic, so this is basically an element granting the wishes of a witch. Typically a witch who doesn't know they're witch, but we'll go into how that works next term. Familiar magic, which is feeding a creature your own blood, so it becomes almost a extension of yourself, like growing an extra arm. So you can look through their eyes and move them around as if they are yourself. To begin with, you have to feed them your own blood. Later, you have someone else's blood glue, but again, we'll go into that in future. And sympathetic magic, this is very rarely used in the books, but this is basically you form sympathy or a bond between two different things, an object and a person. So you know hear about the voodoo dolls where you attack a voodoo doll and it affects the actual person. That is a type of sympathy magic. There are others. A lot of them seem a lot more like high school pranks than serious witchcraft, but again, it doesn't really matter. Witches have the mysterious ways, and we'll go over that next term.
Next up, ding!
The old gods. You don't necessarily have to write this down, though you can if you like. I'm just going to go over a few gods, because there's a couple. Don't really worry about this. We might be mentioning them every now and then, but they won't really get talked about until term 3. So, they'll show up. We're just going to name a few, and I'll go over what I like about them. So number 1 is Pan, also known as Pan, the horned god, which is weird because none of the other gods have a thing. There's not this person, this is this, but Pan has Pan the horned god. I'm not sure what that is about. Next up we have Zeus. I think we all know who Zeus is, big thunderbolt man. Pew! Then Hera, obviously Zeus' wife. Again, these are from Greek mythology. The old gods from this are not all Greek mythology. So Joseph Filani is really good at mixing up Christianity, Greek mythology, old county tales, and just a bunch of things together to outcome his own lore, which is a mixture between different religions and beliefs. And so, yeah, the first one for the first two, working with mythology, however, isn't only Greek mythology. It's really clever how he does it, and just huge respect to him. Because the next one is not from Greek mythology. The next one is the Bane. He, at the point of the books, is no longer a god. However, he was at one point. In the books, I'll go over this in more detail, but essentially, you can kind of work your way up from like demon to god and god to demon, and new gods step in every now and then. And then the fiend, aka the devil, aka Satan, aka Lucifer, aka the father of darkness, aka the father of lies, aka you get the picture. There's quite a few names for him. The next one is the unquiet dead. Again, you don't have to write this down, but you may. So ghasts, which is the lingering emotion or thoughts of a person, typically someone who's dead, but doesn't have to be. You can't really do anything about these. These cannot be removed. They'll just stay there forever. A ghost, which is a dead soul trapped on Earth. Abhuman spirits, which is a human soul which is degenerated so far from man that it's more akin to beast. Usually because they've just had a really traumatic life. There's also other reasons for this. We will go over them. I don't actually know when we're covering Unquiet Dead. I think that's next term. I'm not entirely sure. Number 4, Stranglers, which is a type of ghost. Typically, though, bad or wicked or evil people on Earth. They, as the name suggests, will try and strangle you. Yeah, they're more of the dangerous ones, but again, they can just kind of be talked to and pushed away back into the darkness through limbo, hopefully to find the light. Although lots of them don't, because again, they're probably bad people on Earth, and if you're bad people, you don't tend to find your way towards the light. Gibberers is number 5. So these don't really feature in the Spook Bestiaries. They don't at all, but they are mentioned in the Spook's Destiny. It's a kind of like a normal ghost that makes them talk in complete gibberish and go like jibber jabber, which can often drive the inhabitants of the building in which they inhabit insane. So we hear a story of a man who throws himself out a window, like several stories up. He luckily survives, but breaks both his legs, and his sanity is completely gone. Yeah, again, I will kind of go over them. I believe next time. I'm not sure what we do, but because I'm trying to keep this spoiler free of the books as much as possible, I don't know, because they do kind of affect the plot. So there are other creatures of the dark I'm not going to go over, like species of witch and demons, etc. But this one is our next topic. This next one being boggarts, and I believe this deserves a passage from the Holy Grail. Boggarts are far more numerous in this county than anywhere else on Earth. There are several different types of spirit entities. Some are little more than an irritation, but others can cause serious damage to property or people, and in some cases they may even prove deadly. Typical boggarts make their lairs in cellars, barns and hollow trees. Most are, at the very least, an inconvenience to nearby people. They are usually invisible, but unless exceptionally powerful, they may be seen by spooks. When angry or happy, they briefly show themselves to ordinary folks, taking forms such as cats, horses, or goats. They can also leave unsettling signs of their presence. For example, cat boggarts may leave paw prints on the kitchen floor or claw marks on the furniture. Unlike other boggarts, stone chuckers cannot directly materialise, but when they want to scare people, they cover themselves in something visible, like mud or leaves, so their multi-armed shape can be seen. A truly terrifying sight. And then there's also talk about how they travel and whatnot, but we won't go into that. Now again, you don't have to write this down because we're going to go over this in more detail next lesson, but just kind of keep this in mind. So first we have hairy boggarts. These are one of the most common types of boggarts that we do see in the books, presumably the most common type in their county, maybe the country. Who knows, they don't really talk about how prevalent they are. And even within this category, they range massively. We could do a whole lesson on hairy boggers by themselves. We probably will at some point. But their appearance will change based on their personality. So their personality will dictate their appearance. Hornknockers, which are basically just mischievous. They don't tend to hurt people, or they'll just bang some balls, throw some pots and pans around. These are kind of like ghosts you see in the films that just want to scare people and, just frighten you. Then stone chuckers. This is where Hornknockers become dangerous. They are no longer Hornknockers, although Hornknockers change into stone chuckers almost instantaneously if they want to. And they basically decide to cause more trouble than a Hornknocker by throwing stones. They have 6 arms, and like I said, in this book they are invisible when they want to be. However, they may cover themselves in mud so they can be seen. I'll put a photo here. Yes. And they'll throw stones, sometimes cause mischief, sometimes to kill, sometimes they throw it to do mischief but then accidentally kill. They are more dangerous than Hornknockers, and probably one of the most dangerous there are. Bone breakers, so these feed on the marrow bones and will often rip bones from the still living. They're also often used to collect thumb bones, so they'll be tamed by witches to collect thumb bones. Church movers, so these will move churches that are built over the top of their lair. They won't move other buildings, they move churches, partly due to the worship that goes on there, bothering them. Again, next lesson, go over that more in detail. Rippers, which drain the blood of animals and sometimes people. You have cattle rippers, then you have rippers. Cattle rippers will drink animal blood, typically of cattle, surprise, surprise. But rippers, they're only rippers once they start drinking human blood. And these have to be dealt with incredibly quickly, because obviously that's bad. I mean, all rippers are bad, but cattle rippers are a lot better than rippers. Whistlers, these are essentially Hornknockers, but instead of banging on walls and whatnot, they whistle through keyholes to, you hear just this awful sound, and they try and frighten their people. Occasionally they do drive people insane, so do Hornknockers, but generally they're kind of okay. Again, just mild inconvenience. And then grave robbers, they wreck graves and sometimes steal the remains of a dead person. There's no real evidence for why they do this. They even mention in the Spook bestiary, we don't know why they do that, no one has ever explored the underground lair. I do like that they leave a lot of mystery in the books. It makes it seem a lot more real. It's real. That's just, that happens. And that basically concludes the Creatures of the Dark we're going to go over. Like I said, there are others, but we're not going to go over those today. Now again, you did have to write that down, but if you did, this would help, because we're never going to do a quiz, and we all love quizzes, don't we? So that'll be in the description. Please write your score down in your book or your Google document or whatever you are using. Have you done that yet? Well, do it. Unless you've already done it, in which case, well done. You gain a Spook point. Now I know we've covered a very wide range of topics today, and this, if you did choose to write it down, there is a lot of writing down to do, but do remember that this is a introduction to the dark, and so I'm just kind of trying to cover everything we do across all the topics into one lesson, and so it's going to be a lot more, but next week we move fully onto Moggarts and we'll ignore the witches and whatnot, so there'll be a lot less to do because we're just focusing in on one thing. And I believe this concludes lesson 2 and probably the last lesson on the dark. Darker. Ooh. I swear I won't do that again. That was supposed to be dark. I'm not sure why it wasn't. Okay, now it is dark. Yeah, that was supposed to be like really dark. For some reason it wasn't. Stupid sun. keeping us alive and illuminating our world. So yeah, I know there's been a lot of writing. Hopefully there'll be a bit less next time. But remember, I'm the Spook, you're only the apprentice, and everything I do is for the best. See you next time.